GM's 6.2-liter V8 engine investigation just became a lot more serious. The NHTSA is now investigating nearly 1 million GM trucks and SUVs. And the most concerning part is that hundreds of engines allegedly failed even after the recall remedy was performed. Some switched to thicker oil, and some received complete engine replacements. We own 2 vehicles with this engine, but they fall into 2 very different categories. So today I'll explain what the NHTSA has confirmed and what it means for our Escalade and our Sierra, and what it does not mean, at least not yet. Welcome back to DONSLIFE and welcome to the channel. Before I get into the numbers, I want to be precise about what has happened. The NHTSA has opened an engineering analysis. GM has not recalled another 1 million vehicles, and the NHTSA has not yet ordered GM to replace these engines. An investigation examines the evidence and determines if the existing recall is adequate or whether further action needs to be taken. Now, I don't work for GM, the NHTSA, or a dealership. This entire video is based off the official NHTSA's opening report, our vehicle documentation, and just our experience owning 2 L87 powered vehicles. Let's go. So, on August 20th, 2026, the NHTSA's Office of Defects Investigations Opening Engineering Analysis EA26005, the investigation lists 997,743 GM vehicles from 2021 through 2026 model years equipped with the naturally aspirated 6.2-liter L87 V8. The subject is loss of motive power caused by engine failure after the recall remedy, as well as failures in engines manufactured after the production range covered by the original recall. This new engineering analysis was prompted by recall query RQ26001, which I've talked about before in length, which the NHTSA opened in January 2026 to examine whether GM's recall remedy was actually effective. This is an escalation of that work, not simply another news article repeating the old recall. Here's the part that will get the most attention. In case you missed it, the NHTSA says it received 499 complaints, all alleging engine failure after the recall remedy was performed. Of those 499 complaints, 473 of them involved the engine oil viscosity change. The remaining 26 involved vehicles that had received complete replacement engines. And remember, these are just the complaints sent to the NHTSA. Many people don't file. But let's keep these numbers in context. These are complaints and alleged failures being investigated. They are not 499 completed engineering findings proving that all the engines failed for the same cause. But they are significant enough that the NHTSA has moved the investigation into an engineering analysis. The NHTSA also reports receiving another 191 L87 engine failures that were manufactured after the production period covered by the current recall. That gives the NHTSA 690 reported incidents across the post-remedy and later production groups. GM meanwhile reported receiving 6,953 complaints of post-remedy engine failure after duplicate reports were eliminated. The official incident table lists a total of 6,050. The report also lists 1 crash, 1 injury, but no fatalities. To understand why this matters, we need a quick recap of GM's original recall. Recall 25V274 covered certain L87 engines produced from March 1st, 2021 through May 31st, 2024. GM attributed the problem to supplier manufacturing and quality issues involving the crankshaft, connecting rods, and engine bearings. One identified issue involved sediment or contamination in connecting rods and crankshaft oil passages. The other involved crankshafts with dimensions or surface finishes outside specification. Either condition could contribute to bearing damage, engine failure, and a sudden loss of propulsion. GM's remedy began with an engine inspection. Depending on the inspection result, the vehicle received one of 2 outcomes. If the engine failed the inspection, it could receive an engine replacement. If it passed, the vehicle received higher viscosity 0W40 oil, a new oil filter, and an updated oil cap and owner information specifying the new oil requirement. That is why the breakdown between 473 oil remedy complaints and 26 replacement engine complaints is so relevant. The NHTSA is now investigating reported failures following both paths. The switch to the thicker oil was intended to provide a stronger protective oil film between the internal engine components. That doesn't mean oil can repair a damaged bearing, remove contamination trapped in an oil passage, or correct an improperly manufactured crankshaft. It means that GM believed that engines that passed its inspection could continue operating with additional protection from the higher viscosity oil. So the new update to this investigation doesn't mean that the 0W40 oil is useless. It does mean that the NHTSA wants to understand why owners continue to report engine failures even after the remedy was completed. Our 2022 Cadillac Escalade is directly related to the post-remedy portion of this investigation. It was included in the recall, it went to GM for the inspection, and passed the PICO test, so it did not receive an engine replacement. the dealer changed it to the prescribed 0W40 oil. So now it has the updated oil requirement. It also has special engine coverage extending to 10 years or 150,000 miles. That coverage does give us meaningful financial protection if the engine experiences a qualifying failure, but it does not guarantee that the engine won't fail. And it doesn't automatically entitle us to a preventative replacement. There's nothing in this latest engineering analysis that instructs us to bring the Cadillac back to GM for another inspection. There's no newly announced remedy, and the completed recall remains completed unless GM changes the campaign. So for now, we'll have to continue using the prescribed 0W40 motor oil, keep every service record, and monitor the engine for unusual noises, warning lights, hesitation, abnormal shifting, and reduced propulsion. The investigation matters because our Escalade followed the oil remedy path, and it's in the same category involved in the 473 of the NHTSA's post-remedy complaints. My 2021 GMC Sierra is in a very different position. It was built in January 2021 before the March 1st, 2021 beginning of GM's original recall production window. Now, if you're in the same boat as me and you have a pre-recall model year, pay attention. The new engineering analysis expands its scope to engines produced after the recall period, not engines produced before it. Therefore, this new document does not currently bring my earlier built Sierra into the recall or the newly expanded later production group. Even though the NHTSA describes the products broadly as 2021 through 2026 model year GM vehicles, the specific problem statement covers recalled engines and engines manufactured after the recall production range. Unless the NHTSA or GM clarifies that earlier production models are also being examined, I will continue treating my GMC Sierra as excluded. And when it comes to this truck, there is another important part to my story. As many of you know, it wasn't that long ago that I voluntarily switched to the 0W40 FS motor oil. GM didn't instruct me to do it. My VIN's not part of the recall. I chose to do it because I wanted to do some testing to see if it provided any better wear protection. So I tested the 0W20 motor oil that came out of it, and the iron levels were just a little higher than I would like them to be, but they were still within the acceptable range. But again, a little too high for my liking. So soon, my personal experiment, we'll put this sample of the 0W40 FS motor oil in here, send it out, and get those test results back. One other thing we should learn from the experiment is whether or not my factory intake reduced the silicon levels, sand and dust essentially, from my big S&B aftermarket intake that was here compared to stock. So I did this just after I did the recent oil change as well. So I'm quite curious on how this is going to play out. And I have a road trip coming up, so we should be able to put the final amount of miles on the truck to get it to the interval for the next oil change. I estimate that to be within the next 3 weeks. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, now might be a good time to do that. Also turn on notifications so you don't miss the upload. I will need to be careful how I interpret my next oil report. If the iron levels drop, it doesn't necessarily mean that the 0W40 oil provided better wear protection. And what if it increases? Well, that doesn't automatically prove that the engine is failing. I am keeping my oil change interval as close as I possibly can, so that will be good. This is also the warmer season for me up here in Canada, which that can play a factor. And I haven't really been doing that much towing. Look, there's gonna be a lot of variables. We're just gonna have to wait and see. Again, this isn't a controlled laboratory experiment. I'm only changing maybe two variables with the air intake and the motor oil. I can't control every other variable from real world vehicle use. The useful information would come from a trend across multiple samples, particularly if the iron changes significantly or some of the other wear metals, and especially what the laboratory has to say in their comments. Most importantly, changing the viscosity is not going to correct a defective crankshaft, remove contamination, or repair existing bearing damage. I'm not suggesting that every non-recalled L87 should follow my decision and change to the 0W40. I'm just experimenting. So if you own one of these vehicles, the first step is to check your VIN through the GM's official recall system and the appropriate government database. An investigation will not necessarily appear as an open recall on your VIN. Engineering Analysis 26-005 is evaluating whether further action is needed. It is not itself a repair campaign. If your vehicle already received the recall remedy, follow the oil specification placed on the vehicle by GM and keep all related paperwork. Document every oil change, including the product, viscosity, specification, date, and mileage. If the engine develops knocking or banging, a warning light, hesitation, abnormal engine speed, unusual shifting, reduced propulsion, or a no-start condition, take it seriously. Don't continue driving a visibly failing engine simply to capture footage or reach your preferred dealership. American owners who experience a safety-related failure can report it to the NHTSA. Canadian owners can report it to Transport Canada and GM Canada. Canada has not adopted a new recall merely because the NHTSA has opened an American investigation. The NHTSA now needs to determine why these post-remedy failures are being reported. Was the original inspection capable of identifying every at-risk engine? Are the reported engine replacement failures connected to the same manufacturing defect? Are later production engines failing for the same reason? Or is the NHTSA seeing more than one type of L87 failure? And does the existing oil-based remedy actually offer better protection for the vehicles that pass the inspection? The thing is, an engineering analysis on its own could close without any further action, but it can also lead to a revised remedy, perhaps an expanded recall, and additional testing for broader owner coverage. The opening of EA 26-005 does not tell us which outcome the NHTSA will ultimately reach. So for our Escalade, nothing changes today. We will continue to use the required 0W40 motor oil, maintain complete records, and for now rely on its special coverage. As for the Sierra, it remains outside the original recall and does not appear to be included in the newly expanded later production group. And I'm not really sure why. I'll continue my independent review of the 0W40 oil analysis experiment and share the next laboratory results when it arrives. The headline is not that GM has recalled another 1 million vehicles. It hasn't. The NHTSA is expanding the investigation to the newer production models and all the post-remedy failured engines. The real development is the NHTSA is now conducting a full engineering analysis into hundreds of alleged failures after the recall remedy, along with failures in later production L87 models. That raises serious questions about the original remedy, but that means the investigation still has to answer them. If the NHTSA, GM, or Transport Canada changes the recall, the remedy, or the coverage, I'll bring you another fact-based update. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video and found it informative, hit that like button. Please consider subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one.